Europa legt reserves aan tegen hoge energieprijzen.
Onrust stijgt bij bedrijven.
Onze energievoorziening komt in het gedrang.
Voor bedrijven wegen de huidige energieprijzen serieus op de marges. Maar met Equans ga je van hoge energiekosten naar kosten onder controle. Jouw energietransitie heeft een partner. Equans.
Het Gentse biotechbedrijf ArgenX groeide sinds zijn oprichting in 2008 in een mum van tijd uit tot een van de schaarse unicorns van ons land. Met een omzet dus van meer dan €1 miljard. Om kort daarna zijn intrede te maken op de beurs. 11 jaar later schopte ArgenX het zelfs tot de prestigieuze Europese sterindex Eurostoxx 50. Een opmerkelijke verdienste van Tim Van Hauwermeiren, die het bedrijf de voorbije 18 jaar leidde. Maar vorige maand gaf hij het stuur over aan de Australische Karen Massey. En zij is onze gasten in Trendstalk. Very warm welcome, Karen. And thank you very much for joining us. And congratulations with your new appointment as CEO of ArgenX.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So you joined ArgenX in 2023 as COO, Chief Operating Officer, bringing more than 20 years of experience in the biotech sector. You worked for Pfizer, you worked for Genentech, which is part of the Roche Group. What motivated you to join ArgenX?
Yeah, it was quite an easy choice, actually, once I learned about the company. But the way that I think about it, the first conversation I had with Tim about ArgenX, I started to learn about the culture of ArgenX and what Tim was building. And I saw that it was a very special company, one that was focused on entrepreneurial science and continuing to build entrepreneurial science into a sustainable company for the long term. So I was interested in that. And then I got to meet a few more of the people that work at ArgenX through the process. And the people that work at ArgenX are incredible. I would say the commitment, the dedication, their passion for patients, it's inspiring then, it is inspiring now. You get so much energy from that passion. And then the third piece is, of course, the science. I mean, it is incredible. The scientific breakthroughs that this company is making, the medicines that we're investing in, and how we're bringing them to patients. So there's a very unique company and a very unique moment to be able to join a company like this that is scaling in this way.
On May 6th, the shareholders formally ratified your nomination. So how has been the transition from COO to CEO?
Yeah, it's been, I would say, quite very energizing, also pretty natural. I mean, obviously, when I came in as COO and over the last 3 years, I've been working closely with the team on Vision 2030, have been deeply involved in that. Been deeply involved in thinking about how do we scale as we become a bigger company, also involved in the launches for Vyvgart or efgartigimod, our main product. So know the company quite well. But over the last couple of months, I've been able to take a little bit of a different lens stepping into the CEO role. And it makes me really optimistic for the future, I would say, of where this company is going.
When Tim Van Hauwermeiren mentioned that he was going to step down as CEO, he also mentioned and he announced that he will take on a very active role as the chairman of the board of directors. How do you see the dynamic between your roles evolving in time?
Yeah, I mean, Tim is an incredible leader and has been an incredible mentor to me since I joined. And I think it's such a strength for the company that we can continue to have Tim involved. I mean, he knows this company better than anyone. He built it from the ground up. I have so much respect for him. And so for me, stepping into the CEO shoes, to know that Tim will be in the chairman role, available as a sounding board, available for advice, but also available to, I would say, advocate for and represent ArgenX in the broader ecosystem. I think it just is a really strength for the company.
Yeah, and what might be your unique imprint as CEO?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're different leaders on the same mission, though, I would say. And, over the past few months, I should say, I've been looking at what is the mission that Tim laid out for the company all those years ago when he founded the company. And it's very clear that from the beginning, he wanted to build, along with the co-founders, an immunology company that is a disruptor, that is innovative, but is bringing immunology medicines to patients. And we're sort of in the first chapter of that story story bringing Vyvgart to patients around the world. I think my mark is the next chapter of ArgenX is that we want to develop more medicines beyond Vyvgart and bring multiple medicines to patients all around the world and really grow into that immunology leader and continue to be a disruptor.
Yeah. Well, the focus is indeed on those rare autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
Vyvgart is ArgenX's flagship medicine. Could you explain in simple terms what Vyvgart does? How does it work?
How does it work? I'll break it down in very simple terms. So you're right, we focus on rare autoimmune diseases. So autoimmune diseases is when basically your own immune system is attacking your body. So it's gone haywire and starts attacking your body. And there are different ways that can happen. One of those is that something called IgGs, pathogenic IgGs, start to attack different parts of your body. What Vyvgart or efgartigimod does is help to remove those from your body so they can no longer attack your body anymore. And it does that with a very unique mechanism of action so that these IgGs don't get recycled back into your blood to continue the attack, but they get discarded.
Mm-hmm. And to what extent is Vyvgart improving the patient's quality of life?
Actually, it's incredible, the impact that it can have. I mean, to bring it to life, in one of the diseases that we treat, myasthenia gravis, what happens is those autoantibodies attack the neuromuscular junction, so where your nerve meets the muscle. And so you lose the ability to use your muscles over time. And so you can imagine the impact that has. As an example, you have muscles all around your eye. And so that's one of the first places it attacks because they're small muscles. And so you start to have double vision, you have drooping eyelids, you can't see. So imagine the impact that has on a patient's life. I mean, we use our eyes to drive, to work. I mean, you can't do anything with double vision. I spoke to a patient recently she said, every moment I have my eyes open, it's exhausting. And you just can't imagine living like that. So by taking out those IgGs that are attacking at the neuromuscular junction, we improve those symptoms. And our goal is to get patients back to living before they had any symptoms of the disease.
And how is Vyvgart administered?
So we have two different routes of administration. One is an IV infusion weekly, and the other is a subcutaneous injection that you also take.
And can you do it yourself?
You
can have to go to a doctor.
You can do it yourself. So it's a recent. One of the hallmarks of ArgenX is that we strive to continuously innovate. And what you've seen with how we've brought Vyvgart to market is we started with the IV infusion, then we moved to a subcutaneous, but it had to be done by a healthcare professional in some markets, and now we have what's called a pre-filled syringe. That means that you can do it at home and yourself.
But does it heal a patient, or you have to take it for? It's a lifelong treatment.
It's a lifelong treatment. I mean, our goal is to cure. Our goal is to repair. But right now, what we can do is improve the symptoms, get those symptoms down to nothing, and we call it's a maintenance therapy. So you stay on the therapy.
And what is the cost of a treatment?
The cost varies depending on the market, so it's hard to put a line through it. But what we focus on when we're setting the price of Vyvgart or any of our medicines is what is the value that this medicine is bringing to the healthcare system. And so we do a lot of work before launch and once we've launched the medicine to really demonstrate the impact that the medicine is having on society as a whole. So I go back to that example of, can you imagine people before they take the medicine, they can't see. They also have, in other diseases that we treat, they can't use their hands or sometimes can't walk. Okay, we can get people back to being able to see, back to being able to walk or whatever it is. That means they can get back to work.
Yeah.
And they can be, and by the way, back to work, back to contributing to society. So overall, what's really important to us is that we're creating a positive value proposition for the healthcare systems around the world.
Okay, so it's not measured to how much has it cost to develop this medicine?
No, we don't tie it back to that. Now, of course, you're highlighting something really important, which is it costs an enormous amount of money and takes a very long time to develop these medicines. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it's important that innovation is recognized. But for us, and for me, I try to focus on what is the value we're creating, and if we can really demonstrate that, then patients will be able to get access to our medicines.
Okay, well, let's talk a bit what's in the pipeline, because that's really important for a biotech and a pharmaceutical company, of course. And in that respect, 2026 is a very important year for ArgenX. Could you walk us through the key clinical trials which are currently underway?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me zoom out. As you say, 2026 is a pivotal year for us. And we have a number of trials that are reading out with Vyvgart, which is what we've been talking about, the medicine that we already have approved. So we have, with Vyvgart, we call it a pipeline in a product. So trying to get multiple indications approved or treat multiple diseases with the same medicine. So next up, we have a disease called myositis that's reading out in Q3. That's where your immune system is sort of attacking your muscles and you get muscle inflammation is maybe one of the easiest way to think about it. Quite a debilitating disease. We have another disease, ITP, which is actually in your blood, and your platelets are being attacked by these IgGs that should be reading out later this year. And then next year, we continue with Vyvgart data reading out in Sjogren's, which is another rheumatology-focused indication. So within Vyvgart, we have a number of data readouts coming, all of them really exciting. But what also is exciting this year, and that it's a pivotal year for ArgenX, is that we have our first phase 3 readout for our second molecule. That molecule's name is empasiprubart. It's what's called a C2 blocker or sweeper, and we can go into what that means. But that's also being studied in a rare disease called MMN.
And phase 3, that's the last.
That's the last
phase.
one.
Before, what's next? What's
before,
next?
Yeah. So once the data reads out, so if assuming it's positive at the end of this year, we go sprint as quickly as possible to get approval by regulatory agencies around the world so that we can bring it to patients.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned it before. It takes many years to develop and to go through all those phases. It's very costly as well. Yeah. How do you deal with that insecurity? And when do you decide, well, we should pull the plug?
Yeah, it's part and parcel of being in this industry for 25 years. You get used to the uncertainty that comes with these clinical trials. But I think the key is, and I think this is what ArgenX is really good at, is early on, you need to really understand the biology and understand the science. So we partner very closely with academic institutions to really unravel the biology, get to the core of what's going on, understand how our medicine could work there. We do translational work, we do preclinical work, a lot of early science work that de-risks then the study. But once you then go into a phase 3 study, often these are multiple years that you're testing the experiment, and some of them read out positive, but there's always attrition. That's part of the industry. But when you turn over that data card and it's positive and you can see the impact for patients, those are the really exciting moments in this industry.
Yeah. And of course, receiving regulatory approval is crucial. How does the approach of the European Medicines Agency compare to that of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the US? Because that's a very different approach. Could you explain to us what these differences are?
Yeah, so there's differences in, as you say, different countries. I would say the regulatory approaches are different, but where it really differs more is in the reimbursement approaches. And we were talking about getting access to medicines earlier. So generally, you get approval for your medicine by the FDA or EMA. And then in Europe, you go country by country to get reimbursement. And depending on the country, it can take quite a long period of time to go through the process of demonstrating what is the value of your medicine. And that's why there's sometimes a delay to bringing medicines to patients in Europe. And actually where I'm from in Australia, it's the same thing. As opposed to in the US, you get the FDA approval. And because they have different payers and it's more fragmented, very quickly the patients can get access. So the biggest difference, I'd say, between the markets is the reimbursement component.
And why is it that it's happening more quickly in the US?
Yeah, in the US, it's not one single payer. Each different insurance company makes their assessment of whether to reimburse the medicine. And these companies make their assessments more quickly at the end of the day and are able to move more quickly and recognize the value of the innovation and the value that innovation is bringing.
And would it be an improvement if instead of all the different member states states in Europe are taking their own decisions, that it would be more a European decision on a higher level?
You know, there's been some experimentation with that, for example, through COVID, with the vaccines, and that is one potential path forward. But I think you're hitting on the right point, which is why is there such a lag between when these medicines are approved and when they're reimbursed, and how can we shorten that time? And I think it's something that industry needs to work with governments to really think about how can we shorten that time.
What is the percentage that the public healthcare systems are taking on in the reimbursement, and how much is the patient paying for Vyvgart?
It's another one that varies by country, so it's hard to answer that question. But in most cases, the vast majority of the cost is taken on by the healthcare system, and there's a smaller out-of-pocket for patients.
You already mentioned how important timing is in this biotech sector. ArgenX taps into a niche market, but of course other biotech and pharmaceutical companies not standing still. So do you feel the heat of the competition?
Well, I always say competition is good. I like it a lot because what it means is that more innovation is coming to patients. It also means that we have to sharpen our pencil and make sure that we're staying ahead and staying on the cutting edge. So I welcome the competition. I think it delivers better outcomes for patients. But certainly what you can see for ArgenX, I mean, we're a leader in our space. We led the development of FcRn as a mechanism of action. We were the first to launch in many of these indications. And now, as soon as we do anything, announce anything, the competition is following, and they're coming after us. So we're focused on staying ahead, continuing to innovate.
How are you staying ahead? It's that focusing on R&D?
It is. I would say there's two pieces to it. One is the relentless focus on the science and constantly progressing and advancing the science through R&D. I think the other thing that makes ArgenX really special and faster than the competition is our way of working and our culture. We've retained the entrepreneurial spirit, and I would say, and the passion of our people and commitment that I was talking about earlier. That allows us, I think, to stay ahead and to move more quickly than certainly some of the bigger companies that we can compete with.
Yeah. So you don't have the impression while ArgenX is growing in a spectacular way, it's becoming slower as well? You don't experience that?
No, it's something that we really focus on. I mean, and certainly for our incoming CEO and with this growth that we see ahead of us, one of the major points of focus is how do we retain that entrepreneurial spirit? How do we maintain our speed as we scale? How do we make sure that we can do innovation at scale? And we have a very unique culture at ArgenX, and we have a very unique way of working. We call them our operating principles. And that's really the secret sauce of being able to grow our impact without slowing down and becoming bureaucratic.
You mentioned now a few times how important that culture is. Yeah. Could you give us some more details about what that means to you?
Yeah,
how would you describe it?
It's all we have our cultural pillars that describe it, but the way that to sort of summarize it is, I think we have very much one of our cultural pillars is humility. And I think at the core, that's a really important piece of what we're talking about, because if each and every one of us is humble, and if we're a humble organization, it means we're constantly learning. We're constantly reflecting on what can we be doing better, what could we be doing differently. We're constantly asking those questions and coming from a place of learning rather than a place of arrogance. And I think the worst thing that can happen to a company, especially that has had such success like ArgenX, is that all of a sudden you become arrogant and you think what we did before is what's going to lead us to success in the future. And so that culture of humility, that culture of learning, along with some of our other operating principles and cultural values, I think really helps us to be entrepreneurial and stay focused on the right things.
Okay, let's talk a bit about the financials. Well, ArgenX nearly doubled in 2025 last year. Its revenue to 4.2 billion, with an operating profit that is 1.1 billion. The company has no debt. Yet it never paid a dividend. It never promised to pay a dividend. It's even on the website. But is that something that you would reconsider as a CEO?
I would say not in the short term, and there's a very good reason for why, that we want to reinvest back in innovation and back in R&D. I mean, you and I have been talking all morning about the value of the innovation that we're bringing, how long it takes to bring that innovation and how much it costs to bring that innovation. So our focus in terms of our capital allocation strategy is let's reinvest in Vyvgart and making sure that we continue to build the FcRn franchise, and let's invest in our pipeline so that we can continue to grow and continue to have impact for patients.
But I heard you saying not in the short term. So what about the longer term?
There's no plans for it as yet.
Okay, so far, ArgenX spectacular growth has been organic and, of course, thanks to the expanding applications of Vyvgart. But as the new CEO, would you consider strategic acquisitions going forward? And I know with a cash position of 4.3 billion, is that correct? The financial means are there.
Yeah. It's one of the myths about ArgenX actually is that all of the innovation came from the inside. From the very beginning, the model that ArgenX has is that we partner with academic institutions to find novel biology, and what we bring to the table is our antibody engineering capabilities. So we've always partnered in order to make these incredible molecules and bring the science to patients. And with our cash position now, what that allows us to do is to start looking more broadly, beyond just partnerships with the academic institution. But in addition to that, are there small biotech companies? Are there other places where we can find novel biology, new targets that are going to unlock value for patients and really address unmet needs? And so we are agnostic, I would say, about where that novel science comes from. What we're looking for is novel science that can transform outcomes for patients, and our cash positions gives us more flexibility on where we can look.
Well, unlike some other biotech and pharmaceutical companies, ArgenX was less exposed to the US import tariffs that President Trump announced last year, and that's because you're manufacturing locally in the US. But President Trump also announced that he is planning to pressure pharmaceutical companies into lowering the drug prices. So how do you regard that risk? Is there something proactively that you can do, or is it something that you, as a company, you just have to absorb?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we're always looking across all of these different risks. And at the moment, it feels like there's new ones, constantly coming out. The way that we look at this, and I think has positioned us really well, is we take the long-term view. What is the right thing to do for our company over the long term, and what do we see as the geopolitical trends over the long term? And we make our decisions based on that, not based on the news from yesterday. That's why we're in the situation where we built our supply chain during COVID, and it was quite clear during that time what was happening with the interruptions in the global supply chain. So we said, okay, let's make sure that we can manufacture in region for region, and that's positioned us well. We take the same approach around this pricing discussion that we're having, which is over the long term, what's going to create value is making sure that your medicines are creating value for healthcare systems. And if you can demonstrate that, then you'll be well positioned for reimbursement. And so that's the approach that we're taking, along with, of course, watching the day-to-day and making sure that we're not exposed to any short-term risks.
Yeah, but if he succeeds, it will have a huge impact because the US market is really important for ArgenX. It will have a major impact on the revenue.
Our current assessment is that, certainly with Vyvgart, the current assessment is that we should, based on our strategy to date, the other strategy that we have and that we've implemented is that we have a very narrow price band, is the way we describe it, between the US and the rest of world. And so because of that narrow price band, we've quite limited exposure, and we did that for all of the right reasons, with a long-term strategy in mind. So we have limited exposure with Vyvgart, and then of course with our new medicines that we'll be launching, that will be, we'll be able to plan for the future as well.
ArgenX went public in 2014, and compared with its peak in December last year, the stock price went almost 100-fold. And as a listed company, of course, the shareholders are very important and very precious. As the new CEO, will you be keeping a closer eye on the stock price movements?
Look, I mean, the way that I see it is that the focus that for me and for the team needs to be on the value that we create for patients. If we're creating value for patients and we're doing that by bringing novel medicines to patients, then the stock price will go in the right direction. But let's not get it confused and focus on the other way around. I think that's when companies get into trouble.
But ArgenX was included in the Eurostoxx 50. It's a very important and precious, prestigious index of the 50 largest companies in the Eurozone. Is that something that's being celebrated within the company, or does that, place more pressure on the shoulders of the management?
No, what we celebrate at ArgenX is our impact on patients. So every time we have a new launch for a new indication, or every time a new country receives reimbursement, those are the milestones that we celebrate and that give us energy. And of course, it's great to be recognized by these other types of things, but really what drives us and inspires us is the patients.
Yeah, so it's not that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you do is have a look what ArgenX is doing on the stock exchange. Okay, ArgenX has become a leading player in the pharmaceutical industry. Headquarters are still based, luckily, in Ghent. Will that continue to be the case, or is on the longer term, because you mentioned that you are thinking long term, will that be the case, or is there a possibility that you might move to another country?
No, the heart of the company and where we started is in Ghent and in the Flanders region, and you can see, and that will remain. What we try to think about is that we're building a global company with different innovation hubs, and there will always be that innovation hub and as I said, the heart of the company, our labs in Ghent. But we bring our medicines to patients around the world, and we'll continue to do that. We also want to source our science from around the world, wherever it is, the best science that we can find. So we'll always have our labs, we'll always have our heart in Ghent, absolutely. But certainly our impact that we want to have is more global.
And what has Belgium, or maybe Flanders, what has it to offer to a company like ArgenX?
Yeah, I think what Belgium has to offer is the quality of the science. What you see in Ghent is this ecosystem that really helps young biotechs to grow and to develop, and ArgenX being one of them. And I think as a company, what we want to do is be able to contribute back to that ecosystem in Ghent and in the Flanders region of how do we help other emerging biotechs also go on the same journey that ArgenX has and start to build a really thriving ecosystem.
And what could we do better to support companies like ArgenX?
Yeah, I think continue what is being focused on, which is the collaboration with the universities, the building of the ecosystem. I think that investment in technology and investment in the local economy is what helps us to access talent and be able to build our company here.
You already mentioned briefly that you were one of the co-architects of Vision 2030.
Yes.
So which milestones still have to be achieved, and what's coming next? When can we expect more about Vision, 2035, 2040? What are you working on at the moment?
Well, yes. So let's get to Vision 2030 first. But it's exciting time. So we define Vision 2030 as the mission or our vision for our company through the lenses through which we think we can create value. So the first part of our vision is that we want to have the impact on the lives of 50,000 patients by the end of the decade. And the latest update, we were at 19,000 patients. So we're almost halfway there, but we'll continue to bring our medicines to patients, and I think we'll get there by the end of the decade. The second part of Vision 2030 is that we want to treat 10 diseases or have 10 indications by the end of the decade. Today we have 3. We talked earlier about the fact that we have these, hopefully, positive data readouts coming that will allow us to expand the number of diseases we're treating. And that's the real value we bring in terms of unmet need. And then the third part of Vision 2030 is that we want to have 5 molecules in late-stage development by the end of the decade. So today we have Vyvgart launched. We want to be on the way to have 5 being launched by the end of the decade. And so that's what really sets us up for, to your question, Vision 2035 and 40 and beyond, where I think we start to think of ArgenX not as a Vyvgart company, not as an FcRn company, but really as a company with a portfolio of products that's transforming the lives of patients across immunology diseases.
There's a lot of work to do for the coming years.
It's exciting.
Yeah. And leading a company like ArgenX, it's very consuming. So what do you do for you, yourself, what do you do to stay healthy?
It is. What I love to do is be out in nature. So my favorite things, anything in nature. So I love hiking, I love biking, I love skiing, anything running. So as long as I can be outside in nature, breathing the fresh air, I find that very restorative and recharging.
It's very important to clear your head from time to time.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best with your position as CEO in the coming years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. En u bedankt, dames en heren. Volgende week dan zijn we er weer met een nieuwe Trendstalk en ik hoop dat u er dan ook weer bij bent.
Europa legt reserves aan tegen hoge energieprijzen.
Onrust stijgt bij
Onze
bedrijven.
energievoorziening komt in het gedrang.
Voor bedrijven wegen de huidige energieprijzen serieus op de marges. Maar met Equans ga je van hoge energiekosten naar kosten onder controle. Jouw energietransitie heeft een partner. Equans.